The world map in the 20th century changed faster than ever. 2 world wars, the collapse of empires, revolutions, and changes in political regimes. All of this rebuilt borders, erased some states, and gave birth to others. Capitals, flags, and names changed, and what seemed eternal suddenly disappeared without a trace. At the beginning of the century, there were only a few dozen independent states on the planet. The rest were colonies and protectorates. By the end of the century, there were more than 190 of them, especially after the collapse of the colonial system and the socialist bloc. But not all countries have survived to this day. Some have disappeared. They are no longer on the map in newspaper headlines or even in the memories of many people. Yugoslavia emerged after World War I, first as the kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes, later simply Yugoslavia. It united dozens of peoples under one flag: Serbs, Croats, Bosnians, Slovenes, Macedonians, and Montenegrins. After World War II, the country was ruled by Josip Broz Tito, a charismatic leader who kept Yugoslavia socialist but not under Soviet control. After his death, things went downhill, national divisions intensified, and the bloody wars of the 1990s began, in which even NATO forces intervened. Today, in the place of Yugoslavia, there are 7 states, including Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Slovenia, Montenegro, Macedonia, and the partially recognized Republic of Kosovo. One of the most vivid illustrations of how ethnic conflict can destroy a country. Like Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia emerged from the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The country united the Czechs and Slovaks, 2 closely related but distinct peoples. During the interwar period, Czechoslovakia was considered one of the most stable and developed democracies in the region. But already in 1938, the country was occupied by Nazi Germany. After the war, the communists came to power with the support of the USSR. And in 1968, when the Czechs tried to carry out reforms, Soviet tanks entered the country. This was the end of the Prague Spring. After the collapse of the USSR, changes began here too. Czechoslovakia disintegrated peacefully without shooting or conflicts. The Czechs and Slovaks simply decided to move on separately. Today, they are 2 different countries, and both are quite successful. After World War II, Germany was divided into 4 zones. In the west was the FRG, an ally of the United States. In the east was the GDR, closely allied with the Soviet Union. It was a socialist country with a centralized economy, ideological control, and the famous Berlin Wall, which divided the city and the country in half. The wall became a symbol of the Cold War. Crossing it was often mortally dangerous. The guards had the right to shoot. People fled to the west, and the GDR economy eventually began to stall. In 1989, the wall fell. Within a year, East and West Germany were once again a single state. The GDR had disappeared, but the nostalgia and trauma associated with its disappearance remain in public memory. Number 4. USSR. The Soviet Union became one of the greatest powers of the 20th century. It united 15 republics from the Baltics to Central Asia and played a key role in world history. Victory in the Great Patriotic War, the first man in space, the development of science, industry, and education. All this became possible within the framework of a single country. The USSR had a huge impact on the entire world, remaining a symbol of an independent path of development. For many nations, this was an era of both difficulties and great achievements. Kazakhstan, like other Union republics, made its contribution to the common cause. In the late 1980s, large-scale transformations began. Perestroika, the growth of national movements, the desire for greater independence. The USSR had a huge impact on the entire world, remaining a symbol of an independent path of development. In 1991, the USSR ceased to exist, and 15 independent states emerged in its place. But the memory of shared history, friendship between peoples, and common victories is still alive. Number 5. Austria-Hungary is a classic example of an empire that is too complex and too diverse. It united dozens of people speaking different languages, professing different religions, and dreaming of independence. The empire was held together by compromises until the First World War began. After losing the war, Austria-Hungary simply fell apart. In its place were Austria-Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and parts of other countries. The state disappeared quickly, but left its mark on the architecture, culture, and legal systems of Central Europe. Next, the Ottoman Empire. It lasted for over 600 years. It controlled vast territories in Europe, Asia, and North Africa, including the Balkans, the Middle East, and Egypt. It was an Islamic monarchy, with the Sultan being both the political and spiritual leader. By the beginning of the 20th century, the Ottoman Empire was already weakening. Territorial losses, internal conflicts, and reforms without results. Participation in the First World War on the losing side put an end to it. In 1922, the Sultanate was abolished, and in 1923, the Turkish Republic emerged in its place. The era of the secular state began, and the Ottoman Empire remained only in history books and tourist routes around Istanbul. After the fall of the Chinese Qing Empire, Tibet declared independence. The country was effectively ruled by the Dalai Lama, and Tibet remained an isolated but independent state. state. In 1950, Chinese troops entered the region. China claimed to be restoring historical territory, but for the Tibetans themselves, it was an occupation. In 1959, an uprising occurred which was suppressed, and the Dalai Lama fled to India. Since then, Tibet has been an autonomous region of China. Its independence is not recognized, but disputes about the future of the region continue to this day. Sikkim is a tiny mountain kingdom in the Himalayas, between India and Tibet. From the 16th century, it was ruled by monarchs from the Namgyal dynasty. In the 20th century, Sikkim became a protectorate of India, retaining formal independence. In 1975, the residents voted to join India in a referendum. Thus, Sikkim became the 22nd state of India peacefully without conflict. Today, only old coats of arms and stories of locals remind us of its former status. The United Arab Republic, or UAR, was an attempt by Egypt and Syria to unite into one state. Pan-Arab unity and confrontation with Israel were the main motivations. However, the union proved fragile because the two countries differed politically and economically. Syria left the United Arab Republic after just 3 years. Egypt held on to the name for a time, but by 1971, it too abandoned it. The Pan-Arab experiment ended swiftly and decisively. The most unusual country on this list, Morisnet, is a tiny piece of land between Belgium and Germany. It was created in the 19th century when they could not agree on who it should belong to. The territory was declared neutral and was jointly governed. Morisnet had its own flag, coat of arms, and even attempts to create an artificial language. But in 1920, after the First World War, the territory went to Belgium. Today, it is just a district, but locals still celebrate the Day of Independence with irony. On the world map, everything seems constant. But the history of the 20th century shows that even the most powerful states can disappear. 2 world wars, the collapse of empires, revolutions, national conflicts, all this changed the borders and destinies of entire countries. The USSR, Yugoslavia, the GDR. They no longer exist, although not long ago they determined the face of the world. Some of the vanished countries broke up into new independent states. Others were absorbed by their neighbors. But in culture, language, and politics, their mark remains. To this day, and although it seems that everything is now settled, the world is still unstable. In the 21st century, there are still territories with an uncertain status. History is not over, and the world map may change again.